What's up guys, it's Jordan here from SwitchWatch. How are you doing today? Today's review is of Thief Simulator on the Nintendo Switch. Let's see if this one is worth stealing your time for, or is it just daylight robbery from the publishers? Let's find out. It's a cool concept, right? There's always a fascination with thievery because no matter how illegal it is, heists are always cool. The petty criminal, well, that's hardly so romantic, but it's still an interest to many. It's a surprise to me that it's taken this long to get an actual simulation game based around the concept. The story is simple enough. You are Jason Statham. Well, not really, but you might as well be. But anyways, you're a newbie thief guided by one Vinny over the phone who tells you where to go and what to do. There's not much of a narrative here, which is a shame. The neighborhood you visit doesn't really have its own personality, neither does the pawn shop guy. Nobody does. Jason Statham is a silent protagonist too, for no good reason, which makes Vinny, the guy on the phone, the only one with something interesting going on. A game like this doesn't need a story, but it could have been quite a lot more interesting if they tried a bit harder. A bit of banter between Jason Statham and Vinny couldn't have gone amiss. The gameplay is pretty much what it says on the tin. You are a thief and simulate being so. From a first-person perspective, you need to sneak into people's homes, nab stuff and sell it off. Couldn't be simpler than that. The game follows you as you progress up the ranks in terms of skill, as Vinny instructs you to do certain missions, improve certain skills, and buy new gear in order to become bigger, better, and earn more dosh. You start by just having a few simple homemade lockpicks, but soon you'll be using all sorts of fancy modern devices. The neighborhood at your disposal has a dozen or so houses which you can burgle freely at your own will or specifically target at the instruction of missions. It's a quiet suburbia that doesn't make any sense logistically, but it is what it is. A few houses are chucked together here and there, and you choose which one you want to target. I will give Thief Sim credit for thinking about more facets than I personally would have thought about when designing a game like this. Firstly, each individual in a household has their own routine, which room they will be in at which time, but also, most importantly, when they'll be out of the house. With multiple people living in one house, you need to find the perfect time to strike by waiting until they all leave. It's usually only a small window of opportunity, but one you have to make the most of. How do you find out when they will be out? Well, don't worry, you don't need to stand outside their house all day. Well, not quite. But you can either buy tips from your computer, which will tell you, or you can spot one of the residents, click the left analog stick, which will track them, but also reveal their plans for the next few hours. You have a meter in the top right hand corner where blue means they'll be out, red means they'll be in. It's not a perfectly balanced solution, as it does mean there can still be a fair amount of waiting around and twiddling thumbs, even if a nearby car park can speed up time for you. There's a lot of patience needed for Thief Sim. Once they're all out, or perhaps you want to sneak in while they're still there, you need to find your way in. Thankfully, there are usually multiple entry points, whether by the front door, a window, a crumbling garden fence, or vines to climb over. I like that Thief Sim gives you options. You do have to upgrade your skills though before you can take advantage of all of these. Usually the most risky or difficult way is the only one you can do at the beginning until you use the skill tree to improve your abilities and then purchase the necessary equipment to make use of them. When you're inside, you nab anything you want. Sadly, it's not like Elder Scrolls or Fallout where you can pretty much take anything that's not nailed down. There is only specific items that are allowed to be picked up. Small items like phones, cash, routers, toasters, jewelry and so on, they'll fill up your meager backpack fairly quickly. If you have time, you can run back to your car, which can store up to the same amount, so you can basically have room for 2 full trips of a dozen or so items. You can swipe bigger items like coffee makers, TVs or artwork, but you'll have to carry them in your hands rather than your rucksack. It means you can't do anything else until you slowly lug it to the boot of your car. Not as easy as it seems considering you walk so slowly as well, and not being able to unlock doors while holding it. It's best to open your path up first to make sure you don't have to keep picking it up and putting it back down again. Once you're all loaded up and come out unscathed, you can either make your way to the pawn shop to sell everything off, or you can first head home to check the computer to see if anyone has put any requests to buy items that you may have picked up. These usually fetch a higher price than the often stingy pawn shop dealer. I know I've made it sound pretty simple, but it can actually be quite a difficult game in certain aspects. For example, there's always people walking outside around the neighborhood. If they see anything suspicious or see you do some lockpicking, well, they'll just call the cops. Likewise, if you park your car and it blocks traffic or a pathway, they'll call the cops to tow it away, effectively busting you. If you're seen, then you'll have a GTA-style cop rating, at which point you'll need to escape or hide. You can hide under beds, in closets or trash cans, or you can just jump in your car and make a run for it. I'd advise hiding because running away isn't as easy as it is in something like GTA. The star rating takes forever to go down and occasionally pops back up even when you're nowhere near the cops. The driving is pretty comical too. It's very much a tacked on experience and needlessly annoying. First you have to open the door, then press to sit in the seat, and then press the ignition. That's 2 steps too many in my opinion. I know it's supposed to be a sim, but there's nothing simulating reality here. It's like at the halfway point between a sim and a casual game. If it was a real sim, it would have you doing a lot more inputs and steps. So it all sounds pretty cool, right? Well, it does have its issues. The grind for cash and experience sets in pretty quickly. You'll have to spend a few runs going in and earning money and experience before you can take on the next story mission. That wouldn't be a bad thing if the gameplay kept up being compelling, which it sadly doesn't. It's just too janky and repetitive. You'll be stealing the same stuff, going into the same houses, or at least houses that feel the same. Sure, there are various levels of difficulty for houses in the neighbourhood, but it's just not enough to differentiate them. They all feel the same. You sit around waiting for the time they leave, or go to sleep, go in, try and steal some stuff and leave. There's very little surprise here after the first couple of hours. It needed more. More buildings, more variety, more items, more uniqueness. It has its potential, but it's not quite there yet. It feels like an early access game, and it feels like it's been made by a very small team, which it has. And there's nothing wrong with small teams, but for an ambitious project like this, it needed more. Visually, well, it's hardly a looker. I'm guessing it's been heavily downgraded for the Nintendo Switch from the PC version. Basic 3D modeling, flat textures, foggy environments. It's not great, to be honest. The lighting effects are okay at nighttime, and it's probably the strongest point. Animation is also fairly poor too. When observing residents going about their routine, they are hilariously basic as they just do the same 2-second animation over and over again. The visuals are the weakest aspect of the game for sure. The performance too leaves a lot to be desired. During standard gameplay it's not that bad, but during the driving segments it stutters all over the place. That's only a small part of the game, so it's not that bad, but the worst thing is the stability. I lost count at how many times this game crashed on me and sent me back to the Switch's home screen. Normally I can forgive the odd crash here or there, but when it's like 6, 7 or 8 times, you have to think that this is not being given the quality assurance that it should have, and it genuinely impacted my enthusiasm for playing this game. I'm hoping there will be a patch in time for release for you guys, but for me, it almost ruined the whole enjoyment that I had with this game. I didn't lose a lot of progress each time thanks to the auto-saving feature, but having to do a robbery again plus sit through the long load times, my enjoyment of the game was hindered quite a lot. And dare I say, stopped me playing earlier than I otherwise would have. The audio is on the minimalistic side. During standard gameplay, you're not going to be listening to too much music aside from subtle suspense music, but when you're driving in the car, you'll be hearing some decent enough music to make the world feel more believable. There's not a whole lot to say here since it's not really a major aspect of the game. Thief Simulator is coming in at $17.99 in UK pounds and US dollars and €19.99 in Europe, although there is a 10% discount for a couple of weeks. For me, that's way too much. It should have been half that price. I think if it continues to have updates in terms of polish and content, then it can inch towards that price point, but at the minute it's not worth it. I do believe there is a loyalty discount for owners of some of Forever Entertainment's other million games on the Switch, 33% if you own games such as Hard West, Hollow, just don't, Sparkle and so on. Considering how cheap some of those games are or can be, it might be worth buying one in order to save money on this if you're really that tempted. I also believe that discount does not stack with the pre-order discount, so if you don't own one of their games you'll get 10% off, if you do you'll get 33%, which I guess is inching closer to a more acceptable price. I would say wait for a sale, and if you know Forever Entertainment by now, they do love a good sale. Patience is a virtue with this one. Before I get into my final thoughts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We review Nintendo Switch games as well as provide gameplay videos and some interesting features. It's well worth it. We've seen an incredible growth in the last couple of days and we're inching towards 30,000 subscribers, which is insane. I hope you guys can become part of that. If you're not new, then continue to show your support with a thumbs up and a comment. It helps us out so much. Overall, Thief Sim is a promising game. The problem is that it feels like it's made by just a couple of people and is still in early access. There's nothing wrong with having a small team, but it's an ambitious project that could have used more hands on deck. It has its systems in place, probably considering more facets than you would otherwise think, and it puts them into a game that progresses nicely enough from a simple, petty DIY thief to a high-tech mastermind, but it just fails to take the necessary steps to elevate it from its early access nature or hobbyist feeling. It has its moments of fun, but it's janky and all too quickly loses its appeal, certainly not helped by the awful stability issues which made me give up on the game earlier than I would have liked. Promising but janky, a decent 6 out of 10. I'm hoping there will be a performance patch as well as additional content down the line, which would definitely improve my opinion on it. If you're into these sneaky stealth, home invasion types of games, then check out my review of Hello Neighbour, although it is far worse than Thief Sim. I'll see you guys over there, take care.